by our three gunas, by our mental temperaments decides how we act, and he in between brings about a concept of hypocrisy. I'm just going back to revise so that we need to always understand that when it's not just a physical action that matters, but also the correlation between your thought and your action is what that matters. If you do not have your thought and your action in consensus, you will get mental restlessness. He says that mithyachara, the person who acts in such a way, who indulges in action, who restrains his physical actions but still indulges in mind. You're stopping yourself from acting physically, but still mentally you are indulging in the thoughts of performing the same acts. You will not be able to be happy and with peace of mind. Next, he brings into the concept of yajna, where we understood that how yajna is performed in the same way. When we do all our actions in the spirit of yajna, we will be transforming each of our action into a spiritual action. The whole crux of karma yoga is to transform our action into a spiritual action. When all the action transforms into a spiritual action, then we will try to transcend our desires, and ultimately self-realization is what, at least in the base level, when we try to do the actions in terms of karma yoga, what we get first thing is efficiency in our actions, and also we tend to get peace of mind. And from the yajna concept, we also understood the wheel of action, how when we are born, we are bound to act, because when we have a body, we have to act, and how we can get liberated by doing the same action. So how is that wheel, and how that wheel can be continued, or how that wheel can be broken, we saw. And after telling all these intellectual appeals, he ends saying that Arjuna, after telling all these things, you have to perform without attachment to the results of action, because that is what is going to be better for you. After he concluded with that, he understood that there is no reaction or recovery from Arjuna. Arjuna has not recovered, showing any signs of a difference from the state where he asked the question. So he changes a path. Now the path 3, where we are going to see the 5 verses, we have seen last 2 verses last class, 20 and 21, where he tries to bring about people like Janaka, and this whole segment of 5 verses is to have an emotional appeal for action. We have seen that Arjuna in the first chapter has gone into an emotional depression. He has gone into that psychoneurosis, where it is a state of complete emotional depression. From the down state of emotional depression, we can say 100%. When it comes to the second chapter and to the start of third chapter, he has recovered, but not completely recovered. How can we say that he has not completely recovered? If he has completely recovered and he has started thinking rationally, he would have understood what Lord Krishna was telling him in the first few verses on how to act. When that kind of intellectual appeal, which is a rational way of looking at an action, did not appeal to him, it is clear from that he is not completely out of the emotional state. He still is in some emotional state, but not in the emotional depression. He came out of that emotional depression, but he is not yet out completely of that emotional state. So he brings the examples of Janaka into the verse, saying that the people like Janaka and many others followed karma yoga. They were doing their duties, and still they became self-realized persons. So you can follow their path. By following their path, you are bound to act, because your duty is to act. So you can wage the war, and still you can be self-realized. There is no need for you to escape your action to become a self-realized person. So first thing again, we saw like, wow, what is the reason for taking the people like Janaka into the name? Because Arjuna relates very well to Janaka, and he knows him, and he has a lot of reverence and devotion towards the King Janaka. And second thing, we saw the verse of 21, where he brings about the leadership qualities. So this verse can be used for the leadership qualities, where action speaks louder than words and people follow. Instead of preaching, if you practice, people follow. That's why always this quote holds good, not only in leader and the leader servant model, but in every walk of our life where we are playing multiple roles. So this has to be very much taken in care. So Arjuna is an emotional person, and when you say that he is a leader, he feels very elated. He will be in vanity, meaning that he will feel very proud. Oh, Krishna is saying me as a leader. Yeah, I'm a leader, or I'm a person who people look up to me to follow, and it might spike some kind of difference in him, and that's why he used this approach, saying that Yadyada charati shreshtaha tatta devettaro niraha. So whatever is the leader does, the same thing the pupils follow, the masses follow. So Arjuna, think your action or whatever step you are taking now, that is going to be influenced, or you're going to influence all the soldiers who are fighting under you. So he wants Arjuna to think about this. We saw until here the explanation. Now we will go and see the 23rd verse, 22nd verse. Okay. Name partasi gantavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptamavaptavyam varta eva cha karmani. So he's saying, O Partha, there is nothing in the three worlds that has to be done by me, nor anything unattained that has to be attained. Yet I engage in action. So he is giving his example here. Why again he is giving his example here? It is because he again wants to bring the personal a weakness. He understood about Arjuna's emotional state still, and some of the people will have a kind of a personal weakness. If a person is very clear in his actions and thoughts, that person will not be influenced by the other person. But if a person is generally weak and very emotional in nature, the person might be influenced by the other person. For example, if I have decided, suppose I am a person who has a clarity of thought, there is other person who is not having much clarity of thought, but is more influenced by people. In that case, we both visit a house and they offer us coffee. So thinking that I have left milk and I'm not going to take coffee, even though they offer me any number of times, I'm not going to take it because I know the reason why I'm not taking the coffee. But the other person, first time, that person also might be full. He might have drank the coffee just before he left the house, but he or she might first say no. But again, if the other person who is offering it persuades, saying that, okay, it's okay, you came, I'm also drinking now, you also please drink, it's okay, it's not a problem, because I'm also having, you give me a company. Then this kind of persuasion might help the other person to change their mind and take up the action. 60 to 70% of the people, this logic of persuasion works when you say that, like, you're also doing that work, so why can't you do this work? It happens in both positive and negative ways, but this kind of persuasion works with our psychology. Is this true or not?
Yes, Abhi.
Does this kind of appeal work with us?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
So why do we do a personal appeal? Personal appeal is an attempt when intellectual appeal fails to influence a person. If a person is intellectual and rational, the emotional appeal will not work, because the person has a clarity of what the person wants to do or don't want to do. When a person is not rational, at times your personal appeal or emotional approach will certainly work. Through personal appeal, we try to convince another of something by such the example. I just said an example of coffee or tea, but it could be any kind of example that we can showcase to the other person and influence the other person to do a similar thing. Here what he is saying, Arjuna, he calls Arjuna here as Partha. There is nothing in the three worlds that I need to do or attain, yet I engage myself in action. He is giving here the state of a self-realized person. There is nothing for him to do and get something. So there is nothing, he's not dependent on any results of his actions. And at the same time, there is no need for him to get something for fulfilling his desire. In spite of both of the things, he still acts. And he says that because I am acting, not needing anything, I don't need anything and I don't have any gain or loss in looking at things. I just engage myself in action. So because I am also acting, you also come and act. What is your problem in acting when I am acting? And if you see the state of Krishna when he is talking, it is the state of a self-realized person where he projects saying that he is in a state of absolute fulfillment. He doesn't want anything. So he is not acting to satisfy anything for himself. So he is totally self-sufficient and eternally blissful and internally independent. Even though we have seen in the previous verses that a self-realized person also acts in the world, but being internally independent. There is nothing that gain or loss or any kind of dualities that exist with the person's nature of work. So he continues. Yadi hyayam navarteyam jatu karmanya tandritaha mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. He continues addressing him as Partha here also. If indeed I do not ever engage in action, unweird men would in every way follow my path, O Partha. Again here, he is trying to bring down that psychological tactic. When he told the previous works, he should have seen some difference in Arjuna's state of mind. From that, he comes to this verse where he tries to instill some kind of fear in him, saying, if I don't engage myself in action, relating to the 20th verse where he tells about the leader. If a leader doesn't, if a leader is, the must follow what the leader does. The same thing he's relating back. If I do not now engage in action, unweird men would in every walk of life follow my path. So they will follow me only. So if I stop acting, then they will follow my path, and which is not good. And when we see the logic here, if I cease to act, the world will stop to be performing action. And when you see this, do you find any kind of logic in this statement? In what Krishna is trying to say? If for everything before we saw, there was a proper cause and effect relationships and there was a proper logic. But this verse, when we take it separately and see, if I cease to act, the world will stop performing action. There is not much of a logic or rational thinking in that will be there in this statement. Arjuna can say, what is my problem if you do not act and the world is not following you? What is that Arjuna is going to lose? What for me? If he is a rational thinking state, he would have asked that. He is just trying to instill fear here, saying that if I don't act, the world will not act, or the whole man will not act, because knowing his emotional state. The emotional treatment works for Arjuna as he is still in the emotional state and he is not completely in the rational thinking state. How does refusal to fight actually interfere with Krishna's activities in the world? So the statement that he has given, when you rationally think, you don't find a logic as why if Krishna doesn't act, the world doesn't act, and how does it affect Arjuna in his acting? You cannot find a straight line answer or anything like that. But this works. That's why he continues in this state. So whenever he said this, he might have reacted in some way. And how do we know that he has reacted? In this verse, when he proceeds the previous verse context. So he will continue saying, Utsideyuri me lokaha na kuryam karma chedaham sankarasya cha kartasyam upahanyami ma prajaha. Here he says, the worlds would perish if I did not perform action. I should be the cause of confusion of caste and should destroy these people. So he, the previous verse, he told, if I don't act, the world is not going to act. And if everyone of us don't act in this world, there will be no activity going on. Then the whole world will perish. And what is the reason for this kind of thing happening? It is because the, as per this verse, previous verse, it is because Krishna did not act. So he will be the cause of confusion of the caste and also destruction of people, or for whatever things happen because of his inaction. So he is trying to say total anarchy will prevail if he stops working. And we have seen that the world is made into the division of caste system is predominantly based on gunas, and based upon their mental temperaments, each one have to perform their duties. And why does this come here again? Because to bring about the concept of duty here he says that sankarasya kartasyamas, like intermingling of caste again. Being a kshatriya, Arjuna has to fight. That is his duty, to fight. If he is not doing the duty of a kshatriya, then all the other kshatriyas will not follow what their duty is. If everyone starts, if Brahmana doesn't do what they have to do intellectually, if kshatriyas stop doing what they have to do, protecting the nation or protecting the country, anything, the intended nature of their jobs, if Vaisyas don't do the business and Shudras doesn't do the menial labor work, there will be a total anarchy in the or commotion in the society, because people who are meant to do their work are not doing their work for whatever reason it is. And he's talking about him again, this fear, that fear he is slightly giving a more push to make him feel that this anarchy is going to prevail because of your inaction. So any doubts until here? So with this, we completed that four or five verses where he gives a psychological approach to Arjuna. What all he uses first verse, he uses devotion, where he brings about Janaka into picture, and with that reverence towards the people who have self-realized with the path of Karma Yoga, he tries to explain Arjuna that people can be self-realized even doing your actions with by performing your duties. Second, persuasion. He brings about the persuasion by telling that when I am doing, why can't you do? So he brings that persuasion into picture. And third one is vanity. Vanity, he feels elated when he is referred to as leader, when Arjuna is referred as Edyada Charati Shreshtaha and referred to as a leader. If you are a leader and if you do not conduct yourself well, your people are not going to follow you. There he tries to trigger that pride into Arjuna, or bring out that kind of feel good factor into Arjuna by talking him as a leader. Then he gives a personal appeal by telling him, I am also doing this, you also do this. So it's like the coffee example I told. He gives a personal appeal. Then he tries to instill fear and threat him in the last two verses, saying that instilling fear, he says that what is going to happen if all of them don't work, if I don't work. And threat by saying that if because of all the other people not working in the society or in the country, anarchy will prevail. And the reason for the prevailing of anarchy is nothing but your inaction. Because you were like that, the people followed and they also became like that. So you will be the reason for everything, is the threat that Krishna is trying to instill in Arjuna. Any questions or doubts in this segment? Because the next verse we will be moving to the next segment. So I take it as now. In the part 4, we have 10 verses from verse 25 to 35, where Lord Krishna gives the technique of right action. So here he is giving the technique of right action. Then we can understand that Arjuna might have showed some kinds of recovery, and that's why Krishna started teaching him again on the right ways or the rational ways of teaching, leaving the emotional stance which he took in the previous 4 verses. And this gives an exact thing of what is a right action, what are the impediments, or how when we the technique of right action, when you are performing, there could be some impediments that we get. What are the impediments for the right action, and what are the obstacles we get, and how can we overcome the obstacles is the rest of this chapter, starting from verse 25. Sakta karmanya vidvamsah kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvams tata saktah chikirshurloka sangraham. He tells, O Bharata, as the ignorant act unattached to action, so should the wise one act unattached, wishing the welfare of the world. So what he is trying to say that the ignorant people act attached to the action. So the wise, what is same in both the wise and also the unwise, both of them are acting. But I hear some background voice. Okay. So the difference between them is nothing but the way they are attached or unattached to the action. So it's a desire-ridden action or a desireless action is what makes it difference. If you are working for the welfare of the world, then this Yajna spirit is nothing but acting in the spirit of selflessness, acting in the spirit of service and sacrifice, where the mine, all these things will go away. Your ego will melt and your love will turn into universal love, and your compassion will turn into universal compassion. So that is the way of acting where self-realized people do. But when we act in the mode of attachments, the attachment again might range from a small intermediate immediate circle to a little bigger one or little bigger one. The more and more you try to become unattached, the more and more you feel that you are more happier and more happier. I just want you to answer for what I'm asking. I take a teaspoon of salt and mix it in 2 spoons of water. If you taste the water, how will it taste?
Salty.
It will taste salty. Suppose I add the same salt water, whichever is there with 2, into a glass of water. How does it taste?
Yeah, salty only.
Salty, but will there be a difference with 2 spoons of water and salt and a glass of water and salt?
Yeah, will be less salty comparatively. Yeah.
Yeah. If you take it to a and add it to a 1 liter of water or 2 liters of water,
Maybe no difference. I mean, we may not feel it. Yeah, the salt.
Yeah. So if you take the same water and again add it back to a small lake or a pond, you will not even feel the salt. But
Yeah, yes.
But the salt is there or not?
It is there.
Yes, yes, it's there, but we won't even know. Yeah.
Yeah, the salt is there, but we will not know. This is the same understanding we need to have here. The problem is not with the desire. The desire should be there. Only when the desire is there, we will be acting. But the desire should be a selfless desire and not a selfish desire. It is the selfish desire that causes bondage and mental restlessness. We will learn it as what is the obstacle for doing or performing the right process in Karma Yoga. It will be clearly mentioned that it is the Rajas. Rajas is the reason for us or obstacle for performing the Karma Yoga, which means that it's not the desire, but it is the selfishness. Selfishness means it is the attachment to the results of the action. When do you become selfish? Is when you are attached to the results of the action. That is when you become attached and you get mental restlessness. I think a couple of weeks back we discussed an example where that when we discussed about the selflessness and all, there was a discussion about like if I am having a fever but still not taking even a self-care, not feeling about much about myself, I get up and cook my kids if they are hungry. So it goes over your personal self-care and still you go and do something for your kids. But at that time in this verse, the thing that we need to ask ourselves is that kind of nature is coming, the nature of you or the personality of you is only to a certain group of people, or even if a stranger walks into your house and you are lying in the bed with the same kind of health condition, will you take the same effort and cook in the same way with the same mental state and serve the person? So what will you do in these circumstances?
Abhi, can you repeat?
No, last week, I think if Uma, you were there? I think Uma is not there. I think there was a question last week asked, a scenario discussed last week. So we were talking about self-care or taking care of ourselves and all, saying that it's not selfishness. Taking care of yourself for the bare maintenance of your body's health is not selflessness. And so when you're not well, taking rest for yourself, not doing what you're supposed to do because your health is not allowing you to, is not selfishness, is what we discussed.
Okay.
Now, what I am asking is, when we talk here about selfishness and selflessness, at the time also this question came up. And I answered it. Again, I'm making the points very clear here that suppose the same scenario is there. You are, and what they told is, because they feel that they have to help their kids, or they feel good only when they cook and give their kids. They cannot see their kids hungry. That will create mental restlessness. So what I'm asking is it only when the kids are there hungry, you get mental restlessness? Or if a third person who is a complete stranger walks into your house and asks you for food, in that state of fever, high fever, will you get up and cook with the same mental state you had for your kids? Or will you give a reasons? Yeah?
No, definitely we'll feel bad for not giving the things what we could. Same like for ourselves. Because they are like guests for our house, right? So we should treat
No,
them
it's not
properly.
a guest. I'm saying that the person is totally new person. It's not, you don't know that person at all.
Yes, of course, don't know him is a guest, right, to our house. Whether it's a known guest or unknown guest is different. But he's come to our house, looking for us or something. So when we don't give him or treat him, we'll feel bad. Even if it's some worker or someone who comes to our house asking for water or something, if you don't give them the water or whatever it is, we'll definitely feel bad. At least give him a cup of coffee or something like that.
Yeah. So if you feel the same for everyone, that means we are in the selfless zone. This is a small example, but ask this question every time when it comes to your actions, whether you are doing a selfish action or a selfless action, whatever you're doing for kids, if there is a similar scenario which comes with a different person, will you be acting in the same way? That means your love, your affection, your compassion, your generosity, is it same to every person in this universe? Or is it restricted because of your relationships and a feeling of me and mine? If it is restricted with a feeling of me and mine, that means we are still towards the selfish actions. It might be a gross selfish action where people are just selfish about themselves. The circles, I'll show you the circles. The circles might expand, but still we have a bit of selfishness of me and mine restricting to a certain circle. But when this circle goes out in Karma Yoga, what happens is when you expand in your actions and start being selfless in your actions, you will transcend from your family circle to your immediate relations, from your immediate relations to a, which is unity. Then it could be your country. Then it could be the continent or universe. So it goes up and up and up. And the more circle it expands, the more you feel opened up in your heart, where your love, affection, and all these positive feelings you have becomes more universal and not personal. And that's what is the ultimate transformation we look by practicing Karma Yoga. Yes, it is a very big kind of jump from what we are here. That is the end of performing Karma Yoga or becoming a Karma Yogi. But as a step to start, as I said in the last week, we will now look for incremental improvements, not the end product, because in mind having a goal of the end product is good, but it's not just to think it's very difficult and leave. So when we have to step up and take Karma Yoga into our actions, see each and every action, reflect yourself and see which small actions you can still widen up, which you can still become more selfless, a little bit selfless. It could not be 100% jump from what we are here to what we are going to be, but at least 0.1%, 1% a day, however it is, but show a little bit of improvement in the way you are attached to a particular action that you are doing day in and day out. So the core of this chapter lies in these verses, which gives the technique of action. It explains what constitutes an ideal action. This section is acclaimed as one of the most brilliant, valuable expositions on the right human activity. See, when you take examples of animals, the lion lives a ferocious life. It eats animals when it is hungry. Other times it will not kill animals. Whereas a deer leads a very soft and vegetarian life. So every animal is programmed with certain aspects and they perfectly behave in the way they have to behave. There are no deviations, there are no changes. A deer cannot behave like a lion cannot behave like a deer. They go with instincts, they go with emotions, and they go with complete programming without faltering at any point of time. But what about us? We have the differentiating faculty, which is our intellect. Using our intellect, we have the capacity or capability to choose our thoughts, our actions, our emotions, our reactions, and our responses. So you can choose to be a lion, you can choose to be a deer, you can choose to be divine, you can choose to be demonic, or you can choose to be a midway. So choice is within us. We have the complete range of choice which you want to choose and what you want to become. So human beings have enormous flexibility. Their lives can range from one extreme to another. Endowed with choice of action, it is utmost important to learn the meaning of right action. So when we see classification of actions based on mental attitudes, how does an ignorant act and how an ignorant acts and how a wise person acts? So ignorant person acts out of obsession, meaning the rajas we said. So you will have that obsession towards the action. Result oriented action creates obsession. I want this, either good or bad. It is an obsession. Obsession creates attachment. That's why you will be emotionally bind to the field of activity for any activity that you are doing. Works to fulfill egocentric desires. Where does this egocentric desires come from? Obsession. Motive is only personal profit or benefit. looks for more personal comforts and pleasures, entertains no higher ideals or goals in life, and the purpose of his existence does not extend beyond his personal acquisitions and indulgence in this world. Everything surrounds just around me, mine, myself, me, my, myself. It's again up to you what you define your me as, mine as, and myself as. So it is your definition of where you are drawing your circle and where you are restricting your that whole thing to flow around you. Whereas the wise person or a self-realized person, comparatively less selfish actions, visualizes a higher and a nobler ideals in life, mostly works for ideals which serves a common purpose, which serves a society or nation, and does not confine his activity to mere personal pleasure or profit. That's why they strive and struggle to achieve noble ideals. So this is a quote by Mahatma Gandhi. Selfless action is a source of strength. For such actions is tantamount to worship of God. So that's why we say when we do perform actions in Karma Yoga, what you are doing is a puja or a Ishvara Arpanam. We say that the actions are offered to God as offering. So your action becomes an offering. It becomes an Ishvara Arpanam, and whatever result you get back is Ishvara Prasada. So whenever you offer to God in temple, when you go back, do all the puja, and all the pujari or the priest gives you an prasadam back. So if you consider like that, Karma Yoga is the same way. It is actions are considered as Ishvara Arpanam, and the results are considered as Ishvara Prasada. So whatever activity it is to be, so it is work. We have also seen at many places, I think work as worship is not something new that we are seeing it now. From our childhood, I think we have taught to consider the work as worship. It could be any kind of work, not this work, that work, all work. When you do it, the spirit of worship, then it turns out to be a offering to the God. Whenever you engage in a selfless action that contributes to the welfare of others, this will create a vibratory pattern that will lead into a higher states of mind. Yes, this kind of selfless action gives you a lot of positive energy. Why does it give you positive energy? Because you have no restlessness in your mind. Your mind is not restless. When you do a selfish action, your mind is agitated. It's restless. And that restlessness cannot give you a positive vibration, and you cannot be surrounded with a positive energy. But whereas when you start embarking on doing selfless actions, you will have relatively lesser amount of mental restlessness, which gives you a better vibrations in terms of your emotions, which defines your state of mind. The more you evolve, the more you are clearer in your thoughts, the more you would be able to understand others. So your evolution not only helps you to evolve, but in turn helps you to understand other people, and your relationships become better. That's why when I introduced the Bhagavad Gita introduction, I have also put that it helps in relationship management. How does Gita help in relationship management? Is it helps your evolution. When you evolve, when you are clearer in your thoughts, and when you are unattached to your actions, you become mentally more stable. And when you're mentally more stable, you are clearer in your thoughts because you can think better. When you are in emotions, you cannot think better. So when you think better, you will be able to have a clarity of mind. When you have clarity of mind, you will understand about yourself better. When you understand yourself better, it applies. It comes to your personality, and you will be a person who is first, when you self-reflect and self-understand, the same thing comes out, where you will also try to understand others. So when the relationship has an understanding, the relationship will strengthen. Most of the relationships issues come because of lack of understanding. That's how Gita helps in getting this dynamic tranquility, peace of mind and all, but also helps a fair bit in relationship management. So we are not telling Gita doesn't suggests us not to aspire for more, not to desire. It doesn't say not to desire, not to eliminate your desire, but be contented, aspire for more. Don't be restless and aspire for more. Have always the state of mind. How to create that contented state of mind, or how to achieve that, or how to eliminate the restlessness is mind, is what we learn through Karma Yoga. So this will say, so first, the gross person might be just him and himself, not even his family, not even his parents, whatever it is. The person is only me, myself circle is only his self, his circle of oneself. A person who is more, a little bit more, draws the circle of myself. Who is little bit more, draws that me, myself to community, then to the country, then to humanity and entire human beings. That is, this entire human beings, what we call the universal feeling, and which is the base feeling of every human being, is universal love and compassion. We are born with universal love and compassion. Meanwhile, when the time we are growing up, we developed we had been fed with lot of likes and dislikes, this is my favorite, that's, and our mind got conditioned, and we developed lot of things of what defining what is mine, and where should you draw your boundaries. We decided it based upon the conditioning we got from our childhood. So again, when we have to evolve spiritually, what we need to do, we have to go back again, think back with all the knowledge and try to change the aspects, which we certainly can. For sure, we will not be able to change the complete personality of ourselves with the given constraints, with the given conditions that we are in, and with the challenges that we are facing. But there could be at least handful of aspects which, when you reflect, you can change. Are there at least handful of aspects through the journey that we went through this, at least like close to 1 year? Could you pick up handful of aspects and work on them incrementally to change them? No one wants to change?
We're asking a question. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
I'm asking
sure.
like, do you find for sure the perfect thing might seem very far away, but do you see with the self-reflection through that there are certain aspects of yourself which you can immediately start working upon?
Yes, Abhi.
Are there aspects or not? Everyone.
Yes.
Yes, Abhi.
So will you make a plan and try to change at least small improvement? As I said, it need not be a big major change, but try to change an aspect every day incrementally. Just don't stay from where you are. At least a slight improvement from where you are. So this is the verse I normally quote every time. Paropakarartam idam shariram, where this is a Sanskrit verse from some of the Upanishads. I don't remember exactly from where I took this. The meaning of this is, the trees bear fruits to serve others, the river flows to serve others, cows give milk to serve others, the human body is meant to serve others. So the reason why we have this human body is to serve others or help others. That's why the concept of universal oneness comes, the concept of universal love and compassion comes. When we have that feeling of universal love and compassion, you will not discriminate and differentiate between anyone or everyone, and light to everyone without partiality. We will also give our services, the help that we can do at any point of time with our physical body, to everyone in the same way. Just a minute, I didn't share the audio. So how do we identify if a person is self-realized or not? So we have seen that a self-realized person is selfless, he doesn't act. And when we talk about the normal scenario of being in this society, and if you have to identify a person, whether because we said that karma, the self-realization can happen to people even when they are normal, acting not for the sannyasis or people who are out in the forest. How do you realize? The way you can realize is to the attitude towards the action. No action is low, no action is high, no complaints in work. They act for the sake of acting. Just I came across a scenario in terms of this example of Swami Vivekananda. There will be a small boy who will be walking with Vivekananda, taking a walk with him and talking. Suddenly the lace of the small boy comes out and the small boy cannot tie his lace. So Vivekananda sits down, Swami Vivekananda sits down and helps to tie his lace. So a self-realized person will not have an ego attachment. So for them, action is an action. What action doesn't matter. There is nothing that to say that this is low, this is mean, this is high. And at the same time, no complaints. I like to do this, I don't like to do this. There are neither complaints nor looking an action in terms of high, low, or whatever it is. So through the attitude a person shows, we can know whether that person is wise, who is self-realized, or a person is not self-realized. So a self-realized person works for happiness and works in happiness. He doesn't work. But a person who is not self-realized and who is normal works to make the life secure and works out of security. So Swami Vivekananda says, do not work like a slave, work with freedom. That is the internal independence that we talked about previously. When we are not internally independent, we cannot feel the happiness. As a divine beings, we cannot feel that bliss. So we cannot actually act freely because we are emotional from inside. When we are internally independent and contented with ourselves and not acting for acquisitions or preservations, we will not have again the mental restlessness. So there could be three ways how you act. You can act being a slave internally, you can act being honest internally, and you can act yourself being internally independent, which is with a complete freedom. So just to give a rating, being like a slave is acting below expectations, being honest is like meeting our expectations, and freedom is exceeding our expectations. And the way human being is programmed or human being is capable of is to exceed expectations. Every one of us are capable of exceeding expectations. We have to find the ways as how we can achieve it.